I arrived 90 minutes late to Christmas dinner at my daughter Emily's house. Emergency repairs at my construction company had kept me longer than expected. As I approached the front door carrying gifts, I heard voices and laughter inside. Through the slightly open door, I saw everyone gathered around the dining table. My son-in-law Brad stood tall, raising a wine glass, and announced loudly in a toast that cut through the festive air like a knife. "It's so good that the old man didn't come. Here's hoping he's gone for good." Laughter erupted. Emily smiled. My heart stopped. I quietly closed the door, set the gifts on the porch, and walked away into the cold December night. I drove home through streets decorated with Christmas lights, but I saw none of it. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The words kept echoing in my head. Gone for good. My own daughter had smiled at that toast. My son-in-law Brad, the man I'd welcomed into our family 2 years ago, had just celebrated my absence like it was a victory. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked dark and empty. It had felt that way ever since Martha died 3 years ago. Cancer took her slowly, painfully, and I'd been there every single day of it. Every treatment, every hospital visit, every difficult moment. But apparently, that didn't matter anymore. I sat in my living room, without turning on the lights. Family photos covered the walls. Emily as a little girl on my shoulders. Emily's high school graduation with Martha, and me beaming with pride. Emily's wedding day, where I'd walked her down the aisle and shaken Brad's hand, welcoming him to our family. What a fool I'd been. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Carl, my foreman at the construction company. "Boss, sorry to bother you on Christmas, but there's someone at the office. Lights are on. Should I check it out?" I stared at the message, confused. The office should be completely closed. Everyone had the week off. I texted back, "I'll handle it. Thanks for letting me know." 20 minutes later, I pulled into the parking lot of Martinez Construction, the business I'd built from nothing over 40 years. The building was dark, except for the conference room on the second floor. Light spilled from those windows, and there in the parking lot sat Brad's luxury sedan, a black Mercedes he'd bought 6 months ago. Next to it were 2 other expensive cars I didn't recognize. Something cold settled in my stomach. I parked far from the entrance and approached quietly. The building's main door was unlocked. Someone had a key. I climbed the stairs slowly, my work boots silent on the carpet. Voices drifted from the conference room. I recognized Brad's smooth, confident tone. I moved closer, staying in the shadows of the hallway, and peered through the window in the door. Brad stood at the head of the conference table, pointing at documents spread across its surface. Emily sat beside him, nodding along. 2 men in expensive suits sat across from them, studying the papers. One of them I recognized immediately. Douglas Brennan, a commercial developer with a reputation for buying out family businesses, gutting them, and flipping the properties for massive profits. He was known in our business community as a vulture. They were looking at blueprints. My blueprints. Financial records. My financial records. The private files from my office. I pulled out my phone and started recording video through the window, zooming in on the documents. My hands shook, but I kept the camera steady. Brad's voice carried through the door. "Once the old man signs the power of attorney, we move forward immediately. The timeline is tight, but manageable." Emily spoke next, and hearing her voice made my chest ache. "He trusts me completely. He won't suspect anything." Douglas Brennan leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "And you're certain about the valuation? 3.2 million? "Absolutely," Brad said. "I've reviewed everything. The equipment alone is worth 800,000. The property, the contracts, the reputation, it's all there. And after the holidays, we move fast. He won't know what hit him." The other man, younger with slicked back hair, laughed. "I love it. The old fool hands over his life's work and doesn't even realize it until it's too late." I stopped recording. My whole body felt numb. This wasn't just cruel words at a Christmas toast. This was a coordinated plan to steal my company. The business I'd spent 4 decades building. The legacy I'd planned to leave to Emily. Brad had married my daughter 2 years ago. He was a financial advisor, successful and charming. Martha had liked him, I'd liked him. He'd seemed supportive, interested in the family business, always asking thoughtful questions about operations and finances. Now I understood why. He'd been studying us, looking for weaknesses, planning this theft from the very beginning. They wanted me gone from Christmas so they could finalize their strategy without me there to notice anything suspicious. Every kind gesture, every family dinner, every time Brad had offered to help with paperwork, it had all been part of this scheme. I backed away from the door carefully, descended the stairs, and returned to my truck. I sat there for 10 minutes, watching the conference room window, thinking, $3.2 million. My life's work reduced to a number on their spreadsheet. 40 years of waking up at 5 in the morning, working in blazing heat and freezing cold, building relationships with clients, training good employees, maintaining equipment, managing payroll during lean times, celebrating victories during good times, all of it about to be stolen by my own daughter and her con artist husband. I started the engine and drove home. But sleep was impossible that night. I kept looking at the video I'd recorded, listening to their voices plot against me, my daughter's voice, my Emily, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bicycle, the teenager I'd stayed up late helping with homework, the young woman I'd hugged when she got her college acceptance letter. That Emily was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. As Christmas morning light crept through my bedroom window, I realized something that made my blood run cold. They'd already started. Brad had been asking me to sign things for weeks. Routine paperwork, he'd called it. Insurance updates, tax documents, standard business forms that Emily brought by for my signature because she knew I trusted her completely. What had I actually signed? I spent Christmas morning in my home office, going through every document in my filing cabinet. My hands moved frantically, pulling folders, scanning papers, looking for anything Brad might have slipped past me. Then I found it. A document dated 3 weeks ago. The header read, "Limited power of attorney." I remembered signing it. Emily had brought it by on a Tuesday evening, explaining it was a routine insurance update required by our carrier. She'd seemed rushed, said she had dinner plans with Brad, and I'd signed it without reading carefully because I trusted her, because she was my daughter. But this wasn't an insurance document. It was a legal instrument, granting Emily authority over significant business decisions, authority to access accounts, authority to sign contracts, authority to make changes to company structure. All in my name, with my signature at the bottom. My chest tightened. I grabbed my phone and called Gregory Walsh, my lawyer. It went straight to voicemail. Right. Christmas Day. I left a message. Greg, it's Jesus. Emergency. Call me immediately. I tried my bank next. Closed for the holiday. My accountant Patricia's cell phone. No answer. The walls felt like they were closing in. I didn't know what Emily could do with that power of attorney. I didn't know how much damage had already been done. I didn't know if I was already too late to stop this. I had to confront her. I had to make her see what Brad was doing. I drove to Emily's house. Brad's Mercedes wasn't in the driveway. Emily's car was. I knocked on the door, my heart pounding. She opened it wearing a bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, looking surprised. Dad? What are you doing here? We need to talk. She stepped aside, letting me in. The house still had Christmas decorations up, presents under the tree, a happy home for a happy couple. All of it a lie. Where's Brad? I asked. He drove to Connecticut this morning to visit his parents. Won't be back until tonight. Dad, what's wrong? You look terrible. I was at your house last night, I said. For Christmas dinner. Her face changed slightly. A flicker of something. Guilt? Fear? It passed quickly. You were? We waited for you. When you didn't show up, we assumed you got busy with work like always. I was there, Emily. I heard Brad's toast. I heard him say he was glad the old man didn't come. I heard everyone laugh. Her eyes dropped to her coffee mug. Silence filled the room. And then, I continued, my voice shaking now, I went to the office. I saw you there with Brad and Douglas Brennan. I saw the documents. I know what you're planning. Emily set down her coffee mug slowly. When she looked at me again, her expression was completely different. Cold, calculated. The warmth I'd always associated with my daughter was gone. You were spying on us? Answer me. Are you trying to steal my company? She walked to the window, looking out at her front yard. When she spoke, her voice was steady and calm. Steal is such an ugly word, Dad. We're facilitating a transition. You're 68 years old. You should be retired, enjoying life. Instead, you're still working 70-hour weeks, obsessing over every detail, refusing to let go. That's my choice to make. Is it? She turned to face me. You've spent your entire life caring more about that business than your own family. Do you have any idea how many school plays you missed? How many birthdays? Mom got sick. And even then, you were at the office half the time. That's not true. I was with your mother every single day. You were physically present, sure. But mentally? You were always thinking about the next project, the next bid, the next problem at work. Even at her funeral, you left early to handle some emergency at a job site. There was a safety issue. A worker could have been hurt. There's always something, Dad. Always an excuse. Brad helped me see that you'll never change. You'll work yourself to death, and then what? The company gets sold off in an estate sale? At least this way, we're securing the value now, getting what we deserve. What you deserve? My voice rose. I built that company to leave to you. It was always going to be yours, on your terms, your timeline, your conditions. Brad showed me that we don't have to wait for your approval. We can take control now. Using a power of attorney, you tricked me into signing. She smiled slightly. You signed it. No one forced you. It's completely legal. I thought it was insurance paperwork. That's not my problem. You should read things before you sign them. That's basic business sense, Dad. I felt like I was talking to a stranger. Emily, please. Brad is using you. He doesn't care about you. He cares about the money. Oh, save it. You're just angry that someone outsmarted you. Brad loves me. We're building a future together. I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer. I'll take you to court if I have to. Emily walked to the front door and opened it. You do what you need to do, Dad. But I should tell you something. I'm pregnant. Just found out a few days ago. So, if you want to drag your pregnant daughter through a court battle, destroy our relationship forever, and ensure you never meet your grandchild, go right ahead. The words hit me like a physical blow. A grandchild. I'd always dreamed of being a grandfather. Martha and I had talked about it in her final months, how she wished she could live to see Emily's children. Emily, please, don't do this. We can work something out. Goodbye, Dad. Her voice was firm, final. I walked out. She closed the door behind me. I stood on her porch, looking at the Christmas wreath hanging there, and felt completely broken. My daughter. My only child. She'd truly chosen Brad over me. And now she was using my future grandchild as a weapon. I drove home and sat in my truck in the driveway for an hour, unable to move. Finally, I went inside and collapsed on the couch. I had to make a choice. Fight, and potentially lose my daughter forever, or surrender my life's work to save the relationship. Either way, I'd already lost. The day after Christmas, I sat in Gregory Walsh's law office, watching him review the power of attorney document. Gregory was 62, a good lawyer who'd handled various matters for my business over the years. He kept shaking his head as he read. Jesus, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The document is legally valid. Your signature is right here. It's properly notarized. And the scope of authority it grants is substantial. But I didn't know what I was signing. She deceived me. That's where it gets tricky. Proving deception is difficult. You're a businessman with decades of experience. A court will expect you to read documents before signing them. He set down the paper and looked at me seriously. However, we can challenge this. We can argue it was obtained through fraudulent misrepresentation. We can file an emergency petition to revoke the power of attorney and seek an injunction blocking any sale or major business transaction. How long will that take? I can file today. Given the time-sensitive nature of the business transaction, we can request an expedited hearing, possibly within a week. Hope flickered in my chest. Do it. File everything. I'm not letting them steal my company. Gregory spent the rest of the day preparing the petition. By evening, it was filed with the court. An emergency hearing was scheduled for the following week, January 4th. In the meantime, we sent notice to Douglas Brennan and his development company that any transaction would be contested. I felt like I was fighting back, taking action, refusing to be a victim. But Brad was a financial advisor with connections throughout the business community, and he'd been planning for this contingency. The morning of the hearing, I arrived at the courthouse with Gregory. Emily and Brad were already there with their lawyer, a sharp-looking woman named Christine Holloway, who had a reputation for aggressive tactics. We entered the courtroom. Judge Patricia Hendricks presided, a stern woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense demeanor. I'd never been in a courtroom before. The formality of it, the weight of the legal system, felt overwhelming. Gregory presented our case first. He argued that the power of attorney was obtained through deception, that Emily had misrepresented the nature of the document, and that allowing it to stand would cause irreparable harm to my business and livelihood. Then Christine Holloway stood up, and everything fell apart. Your Honor, we're not here to debate whether Mr. Martinez signed a document. He clearly did. His signature is authenticated. What we're here to discuss is why Mr. Martinez is now having regrets about a decision he made freely. And the reason, I'm afraid, is concerning. She clicked a remote, and a screen behind her lit up with a presentation. Over the past 6 months, Mr. Martinez's family has become increasingly worried about his cognitive function. We have medical records from his physician documenting complaints of forgetfulness and confusion. I leaned toward Gregory. That was a routine checkup. I mentioned I sometimes forget where I put my keys. Everyone does that. Gregory whispered back, "Let her finish. We'll address it." Christine continued. We have testimony from Mr. Martinez's own daughter about concerning behaviors, missed appointments, confusion about dates and times, repeating himself in conversations, all classic signs of cognitive decline. Emily took the stand. My own daughter sat there and lied under oath. She claimed I'd forgotten important meetings, said I'd called her 3 times in one day asking the same question, described incidents that never happened. Then came the security footage. Christine played video from my construction company's surveillance cameras. The footage showed me at various job sites, and through careful editing, made me look confused and disoriented. In reality, I was simply reviewing plans and inspecting work, but presented out of context, it looked damning. The worst part came next. 3 of my own employees testified. Ralph, who'd worked for me for 12 years, Sandra, who I'd promoted to project manager, and Tom, who I'd hired when no one else would give him a chance after he'd been laid off. One by one, they claimed I'd been making erratic decisions, forgetting meetings, seeming out of it, all lies. And I realized Brad must have paid them, bribed them to betray me. Christine Holloway's conclusion was devastating. Your Honor, the power of attorney isn't a theft. It's a protective measure. Mr. Martinez's family is trying to help him before his declining condition leads to serious business mistakes. They're acting out of love and concern. Gregory fought back hard. He argued the evidence was circumstantial and manipulated. He pointed out that I was running a successful business with satisfied clients. He questioned the timing of these sudden concerns, but Judge Hendricks looked troubled. She asked me questions directly. Mr. Martinez, are you currently under a doctor's care? I have regular checkups. I'm healthy. Have you experienced memory problems? No more than anyone my age. I'm 68. Sometimes I forget small things. That's normal. Have you considered that your family might have legitimate concerns? My family is trying to steal my business, Your Honor. The judge frowned at my tone. Gregory touched my arm, signaling me to calm down. After 2 hours of arguments and testimony, Judge Hendricks made her ruling. I'm not prepared to revoke the power of attorney at this time. However, I'm also not comfortable allowing major business transactions to proceed without further evaluation. I'm ordering a comprehensive psychiatric evaluation of Mr. Martinez by a court-appointed expert. All major business decisions are frozen for 30 days pending the results of that evaluation. We'll reconvene after the evaluation is complete. I felt the floor drop out from under me. A psychiatric evaluation. The judge thought I might actually be incompetent. Gregory tried to spin it as a partial victory. They can't complete the sale now. We have time. But as we left the courthouse, I saw Brad and Emily smiling. They'd gotten exactly what they wanted. The sale was delayed, yes, but my reputation was destroyed. Everyone in the courthouse had heard testimony about my supposed cognitive decline, and in a small business community, word spreads fast. By that afternoon, my phone started buzzing. Clients calling with concern. 2 of them canceled ongoing projects, citing uncertainty about the company's future. Each cancellation cost me tens of thousands of dollars. Then Sandra, my project manager, gave notice. Said she'd accepted another position. I later learned Brad had helped arrange the job, another move to destabilize my business. By evening, a local business blog had posted an article, "Local construction company in turmoil as founder faces competency questions." I sat in my office that night, alone in the building, looking at the work orders and project files scattered across my desk. 40 years of work, 40 years of reputation, destroyed in a single court hearing. Fighting back had made everything worse. Brad had anticipated my legal challenge and prepared a perfect counterattack. Every move I made, he had a response ready. And the psychiatric evaluation loomed ahead, with a doctor I didn't know who would have the power to declare me incompetent. I'd lost the first battle, and I was terrified I was about to lose the war. The court-appointed psychiatrist was Dr. Harrison Webb, a man in his early 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and an office in a medical building downtown. The evaluation was scheduled for 3 days, January 7th, 8th, and 9th. I arrived for the first session determined to prove my competence. Dr. Webb greeted me with a professional handshake and led me to his office. It was filled with medical texts and certificates on the walls. "Mr. Martinez, I want you to understand that this evaluation is standard procedure. I'm here to assess your cognitive function objectively. The results will be presented to the court to help Judge Hendricks make an informed decision about your ability to manage your business affairs." I understand. I'm happy to cooperate. The first day involved cognitive tests, memory exercises where I had to repeat series of numbers forward and backward, pattern recognition tests, problem-solving puzzles. I performed well on most of them. My mind was sharp, honed by decades of managing complex construction projects and solving logistical problems. But I was also exhausted. I hadn't slept properly in 2 weeks. The stress was eating at me, and during one test that involved remembering a list of words, I blanked on 2 of them. Dr. Webb made a note. The second day was interview-based. Dr. Webb asked about my life history, my business, my family relationships. I tried to explain what Emily and Brad were doing, but as I talked, I heard how it sounded. A father accusing his pregnant daughter of conspiracy. A businessman claiming his own employees were lying. The desperation in my voice. Dr. Webb asked leading questions. Do you feel people are working against you? Have you had thoughts that others might be plotting against you? Do you feel persecuted? I wanted to scream that yes, people were actually plotting against me. But answering yes to those questions in a psychiatric evaluation made me sound paranoid. On the third day, Dr. Webb reviewed my medical history and asked about stress, sleep patterns, and emotional state. I admitted I'd been stressed and sleeping poorly since discovering the betrayal. He made more notes. When the evaluation concluded, Dr. Webb shook my hand. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Martinez. I'll compile my report and submit it to the court within 1 week. I left feeling uncertain. I'd performed well on the cognitive tests, but the interview portion had felt like a trap. Every honest answer could be twisted. The report came back on January 15th. Gregory called me to his office to review it before the next court hearing. Jesus, sit down. The news isn't great. He handed me a copy. The key section made my blood run cold. Patient demonstrates cognitive function generally within normal range for his age, with some notable deficits. Memory testing revealed mild impairment in short-term recall. Clinical interview raised concerns about possible paranoid ideation and stress-related cognitive effects. While patient does not meet criteria for a dementia diagnosis, Findings are consistent with mild cognitive decline that may impact complex decision-making. Recommendation: supervised management of financial affairs to protect patients' interests during this period of decline. This is garbage, I said. I forgot 2 words on one test because I haven't slept in 2 weeks. And the paranoid ideation? I'm not paranoid. There's an actual conspiracy. Gregory sighed. I know. But the report gives them ammunition. It's not enough to declare you incompetent, but it's enough to raise concerns. And Emily and Brad are already using it. He showed me another document. A petition for full guardianship, filed that morning by Emily and Brad. The petition claimed I was deteriorating rapidly, that the evaluation confirmed their concerns, and that I needed protection from myself. They argued they were acting in my best interest, that they loved me and wanted to ensure I didn't make decisions that would harm my own financial security. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for January 25th. If they won, I would lose all control. Every decision, every bank account, every asset would be under their authority. Meanwhile, my business was bleeding. 2 more major clients had canceled projects. $400,000 in lost revenue. My longtime foreman Carl gave notice, saying he'd been offered a better opportunity. I suspected Brad was behind it, another strategic move to destabilize operations. My accountant Patricia called, her voice apologetic. Jesus, I need to tell you something. Emily came by yesterday with the power of attorney document. She transferred $80,000 from your personal account to something called the Martinez Family Trust. She said it was for safekeeping, that she was protecting your assets. Legally, she had the authorization to do it. Can I access that money? No. The trust is controlled by her and Brad. $80,000. Gone. Money I'd saved over decades. Now in Brad's hands. I tried calling old friends in the business community, people I'd known for years. Most didn't return my calls. The few who did were sympathetic but distant. Nobody wanted to be associated with the sad situation of Jesus Martinez, the once successful businessman now losing his mind and his company. On January 20th, the situation got worse. Douglas Brennan's development company issued a press release announcing the acquisition of Martinez Construction. The press release stated that I was stepping down due to health concerns and that the business would be restructured under new management. The local newspaper picked it up. The headline made me sick. Local construction icon steps down amid health concerns. The article included quotes from Brad, speaking as family spokesperson, expressing concern for my well-being and emphasizing that the business transition was being handled with care and respect. He sounded compassionate and responsible. He sounded like the good guy. I was sitting in my empty office reading that article when my phone buzzed. Another client canceling. Another project lost. I looked around at the office I'd worked from for 30 years. Photos on the walls of completed projects. Awards from industry associations. A plaque from the Chamber of Commerce. All of it meant nothing now. That night was New Year's Eve. Exactly 1 week since I'd arrived late to Christmas dinner and heard Brad's toast. 1 week since my life fell apart. I sat alone in my house. No celebration. No party. No family. I thought about Martha and how she'd always believed the best in people. She'd liked Brad. She'd trusted him. But she'd been sick and in pain, not thinking clearly. If she were here now, healthy and sharp, would she have seen through him? I looked at the guardianship hearing notice on my coffee table. 5 days away. If I lost that hearing, everything was over. I'd fought back and made things worse. I'd tried the legal system and been humiliated. I'd tried to reason with my daughter and been rejected. For the first time since this nightmare began, I considered giving up. Just signing everything over, walking away, letting them have it all. At least then I could have peace. But that night, sitting in the dark, I thought about my father. He'd been a laborer, working construction crews, coming home exhausted every day. He'd never owned anything, never built anything permanent. When he died, he left us nothing but memories. I'd sworn I would be different. I'd build something that lasted, create something I could be proud of, leave a legacy, and now my own daughter was trying to erase it all. No, I couldn't give up. Not yet. There had to be a way to fight back. There had to be something Brad hadn't thought of, some weakness in his plan. I just had to find it before January 25th. January 22nd arrived cold and gray, 3 days until the guardianship hearing. I'd been preparing with Gregory, going over testimony, reviewing documents, planning our defense, but I felt like we were bringing a knife to a gunfight. Brad had outmaneuvered us at every turn. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Your daughter was at Dr. Morrison's office today. I'm a nurse there. I knew your wife, Martha. She wouldn't want this happening to you. Emily isn't pregnant. She never was." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. It included an attachment, a photo of a medical record. Emily Martinez. Pregnancy test administered December 26th. Result: negative. The pregnancy was a lie. The grandchild she'd used to manipulate me didn't exist. I sat down hard in my office chair, the phone trembling in my hand. She'd looked me in the eye and lied. Used my grief over Martha, my hope for a grandchild, my love for her, all as weapons against me. Something broke inside me at that moment. Not my spirit, but my hesitation. I'd been holding back, trying to salvage the relationship, hoping some part of my daughter still loved me. But she was gone. The Emily I'd raised no longer existed, if she ever had. I called Gregory immediately. "I need to hire a private investigator. The best one you know. What's going on? I'll explain later. Just give me a name. Now." Gregory connected me with Daniel Costa, a former detective who now ran a private investigation firm. I met Daniel at a coffee shop an hour later. He was in his 40s, fit and professional, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I told him everything. The betrayal, the court case, the lies. I showed him the text about the fake pregnancy. I need to know everything about Brad. Everything. And I need it before January 25th. Daniel nodded slowly. "That's 3 days. It'll be expensive. I don't care what it costs. My daughter is being used by this man, and I need to prove it." "Understood. Give me everything you have on him. Full name, date of birth, social security number if you have it, previous addresses, employment history." I provided what I knew, though it was less than I'd thought. Brad had always been vague about his past, charming but evasive when asked direct questions. I'd assumed it was just his personality. Now I realized it was something else. Daniel went to work. For 36 hours, I barely slept, waiting for his call. It came on the evening of January 23rd. "Mr. Martinez, we need to meet. I have information, and you need to see this in person." We met at his office. Daniel had a folder 6 inches thick on his desk. "Your son-in-law is not who he says he is." He opened the folder. Inside were documents, photographs, financial records, all painting a picture that made my stomach turn. Brad's real name was Bradley Eugene Harrison. He'd been married twice before Emily. Both marriages had followed the same pattern. Meet the family, gain their trust, marry in, gain access to family assets, systematically loot them, then divorce and disappear. The first family, the Johnsons in Ohio, lost a car dealership worth $2.5 million. By the time they realized what was happening, Brad had drained accounts and disappeared. They'd tried to press charges, but Brad had covered his tracks well enough that prosecutors couldn't build a case. The second family, the Petersons in Illinois, lost a restaurant chain. Same pattern, same devastation. Daniel had found Brad by tracking his financial patterns, his methods, his preferences. The man was a sophisticated con artist, with at least 3 known identities, and possibly more. "There's more," Daniel said. He showed me photographs. Brad with another woman, taken 2 weeks ago at a restaurant in Hartford. The timestamp showed dinner, then them entering a hotel together. He's been having an affair for 6 months. Her name is Tracy Waldman. She has no idea he's married. My hands clenched into fists. Emily didn't know this. She thought Brad loved her. She'd betrayed her own father for a man who was already planning his exit strategy. And there's this. Daniel showed me financial records. Brad has significant gambling debts. Around $180,000, owed to various casinos and private lenders. That's probably why he's moving so fast on your business deal. He needs the money. Finally, Daniel showed me receipts from a jewelry broker in Boston. He's been selling items. Do these look familiar? I looked at the photos attached to the receipts. My breath caught. Martha's engagement ring, her anniversary necklace, a bracelet I'd given her for her 50th birthday. All family heirlooms I'd given to Emily after Martha died. He sold over $60,000 worth of your late wife's jewelry in the past 4 months. I felt sick. Brad wasn't just stealing my business. He was desecrating Martha's memory, selling off pieces of our life together to pay his gambling debts. I gathered all the documents. I need to show this to Emily. She needs to know who she married. Be careful, Daniel warned. Con artists like Brad are experts at manipulation. He'll have explanations ready. He'll make her doubt the evidence. But I had to try. Emily was a victim too, even if she didn't realize it yet. I drove to her house that evening. Brad's Mercedes was in the driveway. Worse timing, but I couldn't wait. The hearing was in 2 days. I knocked. Emily answered, looking surprised. Dad, what are you doing here? I need to talk to you. Both of you. Brad appeared behind her, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. Jesus, this is inappropriate. You know we have a restraining order pending. I have information you both need to see. Emily hesitated, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. We sat in their living room. I laid out the folder on their coffee table. Emily, Brad isn't who you think he is. I showed her everything. The previous marriages, the pattern of financial fraud, the affair, the gambling debts, Martha's jewelry. Emily looked at the documents, her face pale. Brad sat calmly beside her. Dad, this is desperate, Brad said, his voice smooth and sympathetic. This is exactly what Dr. Webb warned about. Paranoid thinking, conspiracy theories. These are facts. Financial records, photographs, court documents from his previous cases. Where did you get this information? From some private investigator you hired? How do you know it's even real? Anyone can fake documents. Emily looked at Brad, then at me. I could see her struggling. Emily, he's selling Mom's jewelry. Look at these receipts. That's her engagement ring. You remember that ring. Dad, I gave Brad that jewelry to sell. We needed money for a down payment on a bigger house. For when the baby comes. The lie came so easily to her now. Or maybe Brad had convinced her she really was pregnant. Maybe he'd somehow faked the test results. I didn't know anymore. There is no baby, Emily. You took a pregnancy test on December 26th. It was negative. Her face went rigid. Who told you that? That's private medical information. You're violating my privacy now? A nurse who knew your mother sent me the information because she knew Martha wouldn't want this happening. Brad stood up. That's enough. Jesus, you've crossed every line. You're harassing us, invading our privacy, making wild accusations. This is exactly why we filed for guardianship. You're not thinking clearly. Emily, please. Look at the evidence. He's done this before. He's a con artist. He's using you to get to my business. Emily stood up too, her voice cold. Dad, you can't accept that I've made my own choices. You can't accept that maybe, just maybe, I'm not the perfect little daughter who worships her father. Brad showed me the truth about you, how selfish you've always been, how you put work before family, and now you're so desperate to keep control that you're making up these insane stories. They're not stories. They're documented facts. Brad moved toward the door. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. We'll get that restraining order today, instead of next week. Emily, he's having an affair. He doesn't love you. He's using you. She walked to the door and opened it. Get out. If you keep harassing us, I'll make sure you never see me again. I'll make sure the court knows about this, about how you're stalking us, invading our privacy, making threats. I'm trying to save you. I don't need saving. I need you to leave us alone. Brad put his arm around Emily, playing the protective husband perfectly. We'll see you in court, Jesus, and we'll be bringing evidence of this harassment. I gathered my folder and left. The door closed firmly behind me. I sat in my truck, staring at their house. Through the window, I could see them talking. Brad was probably explaining away everything I'd shown them, reinforcing her beliefs, tightening his control. Daniel had been right. Con artists always had answers ready, and Emily was too deep under Brad's influence to see the truth. I drove home, feeling completely defeated. The hearing was in 2 days. I had evidence of Brad's criminal past, but if the judge wouldn't believe it, or if Brad managed to discredit it, I'd lose everything. And Emily would eventually lose everything too. When Brad had drained what he could from her, he'd leave. She'd be left alone, broke, and realizing too late what she'd done to her own father. I couldn't save her. I could only save myself. And I was running out of time. January 25th arrived with freezing rain. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for 10 in the morning. I met Gregory at the courthouse at 9, both of us carrying briefcases full of evidence. "We have everything," Gregory said, trying to sound confident. Daniel's investigation, the documentation of Brad's past, proof of the affair. The judge has to see the truth. But I felt hollow. I'd been fighting for a month, and every fight had made things worse. We entered the courtroom. Emily and Brad were already there with their lawyer, Christine Holloway. Emily wouldn't look at me. Brad nodded politely, playing the concerned son-in-law role. Judge Hendricks entered, and we all stood. She reviewed the case file briefly, then looked at both parties. "This hearing will determine whether a guardianship is warranted for Mr. Jesus Martinez. Miss Holloway, you may present your case." Christine stood and launched into her argument. She cited Dr. Webb's evaluation, highlighting the sections about mild cognitive decline and paranoid ideation. She presented testimony from the employees Brad had bribed. She showed the court articles about my business troubles, framing them as evidence of my declining ability to manage affairs. Then Dr. Webb himself testified, standing by his evaluation despite Gregory's challenges. He described my test results, my interview responses, his clinical conclusions. He recommended supervised management of my finances for my own protection. Emily testified next. She spoke about how worried she'd been watching my behavior change. She described incidents, many of them fabricated, where I'd seemed confused or irrational. She cried as she talked about how hard this was for her, how much she loved me, how she just wanted to protect me. It was a perfect performance. Brad testified too, portraying himself as the dutiful son-in-law caught in the middle, trying to help his wife protect her father while respecting my independence. He came across as reasonable, compassionate, and genuinely concerned. When it was our turn, Gregory presented Daniel's investigation. He showed the court documents proving Brad's previous marriages and the pattern of financial fraud. He presented the affair evidence. He showed the receipts for Martha's jewelry, but Christine Holloway objected repeatedly, arguing the evidence was obtained improperly, that much of it was circumstantial, that it was irrelevant to the question of my mental competency. Judge Hendricks sustained most of the objections. She seemed frustrated with the direction of the hearing. I took the stand to testify in my own defense. I explained the conspiracy clearly and calmly. I presented my business history, my track record of success, my current cognitive abilities. I answered every question confidently, but I could see it in Judge Hendricks's eyes. She thought I was a sad old man, unable to accept that his daughter had grown up and made her own choices, clinging to conspiracy theories rather than facing the reality of aging. After 3 hours of testimony and arguments, Judge Hendricks made her ruling. This court recognizes that family relationships are complex, and that business disputes can become entangled with personal conflicts. However, the evidence presented, particularly the psychiatric evaluation by Dr. Webb, raises legitimate concerns about Mr. Martinez's current ability to manage complex financial affairs without support. My heart sank. Therefore, I am granting a limited, temporary guardianship to Emily Martinez Harrison for a period of 90 days. Miss Martinez Harrison will have authority to make financial and business decisions on behalf of her father during this period. This guardianship is not a declaration of incompetence, but a protective measure. At the end of 90 days, Mr. Martinez may petition for a new evaluation by an independent psychiatrist, and we will revisit this matter. The gavel came down. I sat there, numb. 90 days. Brad and Emily had 90 days of complete control, more than enough time to complete the sale and drain everything. Gregory leaned over. We can appeal. This isn't over. But it felt over. I'd lost. Brad had won. We left the courthouse. Emily and Brad were talking with Christine near their car, all smiles. They'd gotten everything they wanted. I drove home in the freezing rain, feeling emptier than I'd felt since Martha died. I'd fought as hard as I knew how, and I'd been crushed. That evening, I sat in my living room with all the lights off, looking at photos of Martha. I talked to her like she was still there. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect what we built. I couldn't save Emily. I tried, but Brad was too smart. He planned everything perfectly. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer. But I saw it was Patricia, my accountant. Jesus, I need to tell you something. I probably shouldn't. But I can't stay quiet anymore. What is it? Brad just transferred $450,000 from the business account to an offshore account. He did it an hour ago. I think he's planning to run. I sat up straight. What? The amount was large enough that I had to file a suspicious activity report with the Treasury Department. It's mandatory for transactions like this. But he doesn't know that. SARs are filed confidentially. My mind raced. Patricia, why are you telling me this? Because your wife was kind to me when I was going through my divorce 10 years ago. She brought me meals when I couldn't afford groceries. She didn't judge me. She just helped. I owe you this, Jesus. What Brad is doing is wire fraud and embezzlement. It's a federal crime. $450,000. Brad had moved fast, confident after winning in court. But he'd been too greedy, too impatient, and he'd made a mistake. I called Gregory immediately and explained. Gregory's voice changed, becoming energized. Jesus, this changes everything. Wire fraud is FBI jurisdiction. I'm calling them right now. Within 2 hours, I was in a meeting with an FBI agent named Rachel Martinez. No relation, but the coincidence felt like a sign. Agent Martinez reviewed Patricia's documentation of the suspicious transfer. She pulled up her own case files. Mr. Martinez, we've been watching Bradley Harrison for 8 months. He's been on our radar under a different identity in connection with financial crimes in 3 states. But he's been very careful, and we haven't had enough evidence for an arrest warrant. Until now. She showed me their file. Brad had been investigated for previous frauds, but had always managed to stay just within legal gray areas, or his victims had been too embarrassed to testify. But this wire transfer was blatant, especially combined with the guardianship situation. We can move on this, Agent Martinez said. But we need to catch him in the act. Is there a business transaction planned soon? Yes. The sale to Douglas Brennan's development company. It's scheduled to close in 5 days. Perfect. We'll let the closing proceed. When Brad attempts to transfer the funds, we arrest him. Can you work with us on this? For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. Real hope. Absolutely. I left the FBI office and drove to the cemetery where Martha was buried. It was dark and cold, but I didn't care. I stood at her grave and spoke to her. I haven't given up. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to save Emily and protect what we built. I promise. The wind blew through the bare trees, and I felt something shift. This wasn't over. Brad had outmaneuvered me at every turn, but his own greed had finally caught him. Now I just had to make sure the trap closed at the right moment. January 30th arrived with clear skies and bitter cold. The closing for the sale of Martinez Construction was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon at Douglas Brennan's office building downtown. I'd spent the previous 5 days coordinating with Agent Martinez and the FBI. They'd wired Patricia's computer to track any transfers. They'd obtained warrants. They'd coordinated with local police. Everything was ready. That morning, I met with Gregory at a coffee shop near Brennan's office. We went over the plan one more time. When Brad attempts to transfer the money, the FBI moves in. They'll arrest him at the closing. The sale will be voided immediately because it was obtained through fraudulent guardianship. You get your company back. And Emily? Gregory's expression softened. She's not facing charges. The FBI has determined she's a victim of Brad's manipulation. She had no knowledge of his previous crimes or the full scope of his fraud. I nodded, but my chest ached. Emily was a victim, yes, but she'd still betrayed me. That wound wouldn't heal quickly. At 1:30, I entered the conference room next to where the closing would occur. Agent Martinez was there with two other agents. They had video feeds showing the main conference room. At 1:45, Emily and Brad arrived. I watched on the screen as they greeted Douglas Brennan and his lawyers. Everyone settled around the conference table. Documents were spread out. The closing began. I watched Brad play his role perfectly. The supportive husband helping his wife manage her father's business affairs. He asked intelligent questions, reviewed documents carefully, ensured everything was in order. At 2:30, all documents were signed. The sale was complete, pending the financial transfer. $3.2 million for Martinez Construction. Douglas Brennan's lawyer initiated the transfer to an escrow account. From there, distributions would be made. Brennan would get the company assets, and Emily, as guardian, would receive the proceeds to manage on my behalf. But Brad had a different plan. He leaned over and spoke quietly to Emily, showing her something on his laptop. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I'd been briefed. Brad was telling Emily that for tax purposes, they needed to immediately move the money to a special trust account he'd set up. He'd convince her to authorize the transfer to his offshore account. Agent Martinez's phone buzzed. She looked at it and nodded to the other agents. Transfer attempt in progress. On the screen, Brad was typing on his laptop, initiating the wire transfer. $450,000 to account number BG774392 inches the Cayman Islands. Emily was signing the authorization form, trusting her husband completely. The transfer processed. The money moved. Agent Martinez stood. Let's go. The agents moved swiftly into the conference room. I followed with Gregory. Brad looked up, confused. Emily's face went white. Douglas Brennan started to stand. Bradley Eugene Harrison, you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, and elder abuse. Agent Martinez was all business, pulling out handcuffs. Two other agents flanked Brad. What? This is insane. There's been a mistake. Brad's smooth confidence cracked for the first time. No mistake. We've been watching you for months. This transfer to your offshore account was the last piece we needed. Emily, tell them. We were just moving the money for tax purposes. Emily looked at Brad, then at me, then at the agents. Confusion and fear warred on her face. Agent Martinez placed documents on the table. Mr. Harrison, you're also wanted in Ohio and Illinois for similar frauds committed under different identities. And we have evidence of your relationship with Tracy Waldman, bank records showing gambling debts, and proof you've been selling stolen jewelry. Brad's face transformed. The mask dropped completely. The charming, concerned son-in-law disappeared, replaced by cold calculation. He looked at Emily with contempt. You stupid girl. This was all so easy. Your father was right. You were desperate for validation, desperate to believe someone loved you. All I had to do was tell you what you wanted to hear. Emily gasped, like she'd been struck. Brad continued, vicious now that he had nothing to lose. The pregnancy? Fake? The love? Performance? You were just a means to an end, a ticket to $3 million. The agents cuffed him and began reading his rights. Brad was still talking, cruel words spilling out. Your mother dying was the best thing that ever happened. Made you vulnerable, made you easy to control. Emily started crying, silent tears streaming down her face. As they led Brad away, he looked at me one last time. You think you won, old man? I'll be out in 5 years. You'll be dead by then. Maybe, I said. But you'll spend those 5 years in prison, and I'll spend them free. I'll take that trade. They took him out. The room fell silent, except for Emily's quiet sobbing. Douglas Brennan stood, clearly furious, but trying to maintain professionalism. I assume this sale is void? Gregory nodded. Completely void. Obtained through fraudulent guardianship. We'll be filing paperwork today. Brennan gathered his documents and left with his lawyers, muttering about wasted time and legal fees. That left me and Emily alone in the conference room. She sat with her head in her hands, shoulders shaking. I sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I'm sorry. Her voice was barely a whisper. Dad, I'm so sorry. I know. He said all the right things. He made me believe you'd abandoned Mom, that you cared more about work than family. He twisted everything, and I wanted to believe him because I was angry. I was angry that Mom died, angry that you seemed fine afterward, angry that you kept working instead of grieving. I grieved every day. I just didn't know how to show it. I know that now. But Brad used my anger. He manipulated me for 2 years. Everything was a lie. The love, the future, the baby, all of it. Not everything was a lie. You made choices, Emily. You chose to believe him. You chose to betray me. You signed those documents. You testified against me in court. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I know, and I'll never forgive myself. I destroyed our relationship. I destroyed your business. I destroyed everything. The business can be rebuilt. Relationships can be repaired, but it will take time and work. And you have to want it. I do. Dad, I want to fix this. I want to earn back your trust. I don't know how, but I'll try. For however long it takes. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw the little girl I'd raised. The teenager who'd helped me paint the house. The young woman who'd held Martha's hand in the hospital. She was still in there, buried under the pain and manipulation. Then we'll work on it. Together. The next 2 weeks were chaos. The guardianship was revoked in an emergency hearing once the fraud was revealed. Dr. Webb lost his medical license when his connection to Brad was exposed. He'd been paid $10,000 to write a negative evaluation. The 3 employees who'd testified against me were fired and faced potential perjury charges, but I decided not to press charges. Brad had manipulated them too. Patricia helped me restore the business accounts. Most of the money was recovered from Brad's offshore account. The FBI seized his assets. Clients slowly returned once the truth became public. Carl, my foreman, came back, apologizing profusely. We rebuilt the project schedule. The local newspaper ran a new story. Local business owner vindicated after son, in-law's arrest for fraud. The article detailed Brad's criminal history, his pattern of targeting families, and how I'd worked with the FBI to bring him down. My reputation was restored. More than restored, actually. The business community rallied around me. We received new contracts. Employees who'd left asked to return. Brad was indicted on 14 federal charges, facing 15 to 20 years in federal prison. His trial was scheduled for 6 months out, and the prosecution felt confident given the evidence. Emily filed for divorce immediately. She also entered therapy, working through the trauma of the manipulation and abuse she'd endured. I paid for it. She was my daughter, and she needed help. 1 month after Brad's arrest, Emily and I met at the cemetery, at Martha's grave. I wish Mom was here, Emily said. I wish I could tell her how sorry I am. She knows, and she'd forgive you. She always believed in second chances. Do you forgive me, Dad? I thought about that question. Forgiveness isn't instant. It's not a switch you flip. It's a process, a journey. I'm working on it. Ask me again in 6 months, and 6 months after that, eventually, the answer will be yes. Emily nodded, accepting that. I got a job. Admin work at a law firm. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work. I'm going to pay you back every dollar I stole. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. I need to make this right. However long it takes. We stood together at Martha's grave, and for the first time in months, I felt something like peace. Over the next year, Emily and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. She came to Sunday dinners at my house. We talked, really talked, about Martha, about grief, about family. She took responsibility for her choices, while also acknowledging the manipulation she'd endured. I restructured my business, bringing in a business manager and a financial advisor, independent professionals with no family ties. I created a proper succession plan and even discussed eventually selling the company legitimately on my terms when I was ready. Life wasn't perfect. The wounds didn't heal overnight, but we were making progress. And then came Christmas Eve. 1 year after that terrible night when I'd heard Brad's toast. I hosted dinner at my house this time. Emily came. So did Carl and his family. Patricia and her husband. Gregory and his wife. A small gathering of people who'd stood by me during the darkest time. As we sat around the table, I stood to make a toast. A year ago tonight, I heard words that broke my heart. Someone I trusted said they were glad I was gone, hoped I'd stay gone. And for a while, it felt like I was gone. Like everything I'd built, everything I valued, had disappeared. I looked around the room, making eye contact with everyone, but I learned something important during that terrible time. You can't destroy what's built on a solid foundation. Truth is stronger than lies. Patience is more powerful than panic. And family, real family, isn't just blood. It's the people who stand with you when everything falls apart. I raised my glass. To second chances. To truth. And to the family we choose to be. Everyone drank. Emily was crying, but smiling too. As we ate dinner and talked and laughed, I looked at Martha's photo on the mantel. I felt her presence, her approval, her love. Later that night, after everyone had left and Emily had hugged me goodbye, promising to call tomorrow, I sat in my living room feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Gratitude. I was grateful for the trial because it taught me strength. Grateful for the betrayal because it revealed the truth. Grateful for the pain because it showed me who really mattered. I was 69 years old now. My business was smaller but stronger. My relationship with my daughter was damaged but healing. My reputation had been destroyed, but rebuilt even better. And I was still here. Still standing. Still fighting. The old man wasn't gone. He was right here. And he wasn't going anywhere. I learned that betrayal, no matter how deep, cannot destroy what is built on truth and hard work. I learned that family bonds can survive even terrible mistakes if there is genuine remorse and effort to rebuild. I learned that patience and persistence will eventually reveal the truth, no matter how well hidden. And I learned that forgiveness is not weakness. It's the hardest, bravest thing you can do. Martha used to say that life is not about avoiding storms. It's about learning to dance in the rain. I'd been through the storm. I'd nearly drowned in it. But I came out the other side stronger, wiser, and more aware of what truly matters. So I ask you this. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that shook your foundation? How did you find the strength to keep going? How did you rebuild trust after it was broken? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's going through their own storm. If this story resonated with you, if it touched your heart or taught you something valuable, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding the courage to overcome them. And share this with someone who needs to hear that no matter how dark things get, there's always a path forward. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for walking this journey with me. I hope it brought you some comfort, some wisdom, or at least the reminder that you're stronger than you think. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, the old man isn't gone. None of us are. We're all still here, still fighting, still hoping for better days ahead.